In recent weeks, we again saw what has become a regular sight over the years: parents of children with special needs protesting at the lack of school places for their children. Last Friday, the Education Minister said there will be 399 new special education classes for the next school year. And I'll be asking you about this, Micheál Carrigy, in a moment. But first, I want to hear from some of those families on the front line. And I'll go to you first, Charlotte. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Your 5.5-year-old little girl, Kyra, is autistic. I know you've been working really hard to secure a primary school place for her. Can you just talk us through what that has been like?
So for the past 2 years, I have been applying for special school place for my daughter up and down the country. I applied to 60 schools in total.
60, that's 60?
60 schools.
And where are you today?
I still don't have a school place for my daughter.
How is that impacting you and your family now?
You know, I don't want to sit here and cry, but that's how I feel. I want to cry because, like Adam said, it's a constitutional right to an education. I have a 15-year-old who is neurotypical and goes to secondary school. He's in third year. He missed 30 days of school last year due to his sister's sleep issues. And I got a phone call from the school to say that they were going to call Tulsa. My autistic daughter missed 8 weeks of school last year. Nobody rang us. Nobody checked to see where she was. You know, it's horrendous what they're doing to families like mine. It's absolutely horrendous. I have spent thousands and thousands on therapies, specialists, and we're getting nowhere because my daughter needs a team approach. I'm going from Kildare to Meath to Navan for different therapies because I can't access them through the public system.
I said there that the Minister made this big announcement on Friday. Do you think, is that going to sort out your situation?
No, it's not, because, I mean, you can sanction as many classes as you like, but if those classes don't come to light, you know, there's no... A lot of those classes were sanctioned last year. Myself and 9 other parents that are involved in the Equality in Education campaign have asked through the Freedom of Information how this data is collected, how are schools tracked, how do they know what children are coming, and they don't. We've got that clear as day from the department that they don't track these children. So they don't know how many children are waiting for a school place. So while they can sit there and say 390 whatever amount of school places, they don't even know how many school places is needed. And then also they're sanctioning all these special classes, but what about special schools? We have children that need more, that have higher needs, that need that extra little more, they need special skills. Like my daughter, she needs a specific special skill to meet her needs, and we can't secure that. But they're talking about special classes. A lot of these special classes aren't fit for purpose. They have no training. Teachers have no training. Teachers don't want to be in the classroom.
Okay. The very, very best of luck. I can't even imagine that scenario. I want to bring you in, Rebecca. You're in a similar situation with your son, Jay. What's your the latest on that now for you?
So for the last 12 weeks, I've been tirelessly campaigning for this local special school in Dungarvan to increase its capacity because 73 applicants applied there. There was 8 spaces and there was a lottery draw done to sanction the places. So I've been tirelessly campaigning in Dungarvan and as part of the Equality in Education for All group as well, countrywide basically, because of this issue. So thankfully on Friday we were sanctioned 2 new modulars for September 2025 and everything is going to be done to make those happen. But unfortunately, even though I've spearheaded the campaign for the Dungarvan area, my son is still without a place, and as of today he is number 4 on the waiting list. So 4 people need to drop out of taking a special school place for my son to get a place, even though I've literally been all over the country at this point.
Must have been heartbreaking because you hear the news, then you think, okay, finally. You're there.
It's not heartbreaking to me because, to be honest with you, my son isn't a number, he's a person. And my son has a constitutional right to an education and he will go through those gates in September, whether I have to go in there and build the modular myself. And I think that the mindset needs to change here in Ireland. I mean, you're talking there on the panel all evening about autism and, you know, overdiagnosis. A neurodivergent child processes 42% more information at rest than a neurotypical individual. How can you overdiagnose that? I mean, I watch my son, I've literally, all you have to do is literally look at a person on the spectrum and literally just see what they go through every single day to even try and survive in this life. My son is 5, and as they say, he is very autistic. I mean, the mindset needs to change in this country completely, and people's opinions are their opinions, and that's absolutely their right as individuals, and it's a subjective view, but it is completely wrong. I will never sit here and tell anybody who they are or who they're not. You know, you have every right to be and feel how you want. Nobody has the right to tell you, I think this and I think that about you. No one's going to tell me, and no one is going to stop my son getting into school.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Well said. Micheál, and I should say as well, and let people at home know, you yourself know this road very well because you have a 10-year-old son who is autistic. The Minister said on Friday that it's her intention that all children with additional needs will be offered a school place in September.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to empathise with both parents there. It's not acceptable. That as of today, you don't have a school place for your child next September. It's not acceptable in any society. It's the minimum right that every child has, is to be educated in their own local community in the appropriate setting. I know I've spoken to Minister McEntee in relation to this in my role as chair in the All-Party Committee on Autism, and you know, that's one of the main recommendations of our report, that an appropriate place is placed well in advance for every child. As you've said, 399 special classes, 300 school places have been sanctioned, plus 1,200 kids are transitioning from primary into post-primary. So that leaves roughly 3,900 places within the primary system available. To my knowledge, and having spoken to NCSE, I think there's roughly...
Why are the parents being told that you don't have a way of tracking how many places are needed?
That's the information. I've been told that it was over 3,400, but you know, we only have to really, to be honest, look at the census.
Doesn't what actually happens make it sound like that's more the case, though? Because year after year, we come to September, and lo and behold, there is all these children left without a school place. Yeah,
you mentioned the situation of someone applying up to 60 schools. We need to have a centralised application system. I know a trial model was done in Dublin 15 over the last year, and I think that's what needs to be rolled out nationally, that 2 years ahead of a child starting school that an application is done and we're able to know exactly the number of places that we need. But even if we go back and we look at the census figures from 2022, there's 1.9 million people on that census have a disability. If you go back to 0 to 4 years of age, there's roughly 44,000 kids that have a disability. So we can use those figures, and we should be able to know, break it down geographically, county by county, where the need is in every single county.
Is the thing, but we haven't been doing that.
It hasn't been done, but it should be done, and I think that's what needs to be done into the future. We should be using those figures. They are there, and we should be able to be working years in advance, plus bringing in the centralised system, which Minister McEntee is looking to bring in, so that we know 2 years in advance exactly where the need is and have the places in place for September. And Minister McEntee has given a commitment. She's working with the NCSE closely to make sure that we don't have a situation that comes September that any child does not have a school.
Do you really think it will be different? Can you say that tonight? That next September, I'm like Charlotte is shaking her head there, and it's hard for her not to think that we've seen.
I've heard the exact same thing from the Minister last year. Minister Foley promised me that my daughter would walk through the gates of a school September 2024. I have voice recordings, I have videos publicly telling that every child known to the NCSE would have a school place come September 2024, and majority of those children, we have a child that's part of our Equality in Education who's 9 years old, who's never ever sat in a classroom. I mean, that's absolutely scandalous.
I totally agree with you. I'm not going to defend it. It's not acceptable. I think it was 130 kids in September 24 didn't have a school place.
Well, I have 267 children in my WhatsApp group that do not have a school place for September 2025.
Adam, I'm just going to let you in briefly because we are coming out of time. And I suppose people might know you are actually the brother of Taoiseach Simon Harris. But what do you make of the government's record on this?
I think it's shocking. You know, I was just talking earlier on about the fact, 25 years ago when I was going to special school, we had to fight to get a place and travel. And year on year on year, every year since then, this has continued to be a problem. And it's a lack of effective forward planning. What we continue to see within the system is a whole cohort of young people that I would describe as invisible children. Children who are at home, or indeed children who in fact are in an inappropriate school placement, and then every year as a result the NCSE is not making enough places available to allow for those additional children who are invisible within the system. We'll see classes sanctioned, but will we see the capital delivered on time? And yet we will see the state spend an absolute fortune busing children out of their local communities long distances, which is of course the absolute antithesis to inclusion. So we need to move to a point in time where there's effective data sharing, and that we are very much, I suppose, planning years in advance. If an autism class opens in a primary school today, in 8 years' time you're going to need the corresponding number of places in a nearby secondary school, and yet that very basic forward planning we're not seeing evidence of.